I used to work for a company that installed and serviced those automated weather stations you see in remote areas. The job meant driving to places GPS barely recognized, down dirt roads that hadn't seen maintenance since Reagan was president. The pay was good. The solitude was what I thought I wanted. That changed after the trip to station number 47. It was late September, and a sensor array had gone dark near the border of the Nebraska Sandhills. My boss handed me the work order and a vague set of directions. Take Route 83 north past Thetford. Look for County Road 742. It's about 13 miles west. Gate should be open. Call when you're done. It was 4 p.m. when I left. I figured I'd be there by 6, an hour of work, home by 10. I was wrong in every way. The landscape did what it does out there. It emptied. The rolling hills became a vast, dark ocean under a bruised purple sky. By the time I found the rusted metal sign for CR742, it was fully night. My headlights illuminated 2 gravel ruts leading into a sea of grass that whispered against the undercarriage of my company SUV. There were no houses, no yard lights, no sign of anything human. Just the void. I drove the 13 miles by my odometer, the gravel pinging like distant gunshots. The station was exactly where the coordinates said, a 10-foot tower with a small solar panel and a box of instruments sitting in a small stamped dirt clearing. It was utterly dark. I pulled up, leaving my headlights on to work by. The silence was the first thing I noticed, a deep, pressurized silence, like being at the bottom of a well. No crickets, no wind, nothing. I got to work, the beam of my headlamp dancing over circuit boards. The problem was simple, a corroded connection. I fixed it in 20 minutes. As I packed my tools, I felt the first prickle on my neck. The feeling of being watched is a cliché until you feel the real thing. It's a physical weight between your shoulder blades. I turned around slowly, shining my headlamp toward the wall of tall grass that ringed the clearing. And I saw them, not shapes, not shadows, silhouettes. 4 of them, maybe 5, standing at the very edge of the grass where the light from my headlights faded into black. They were perfectly still, spaced about 10 feet apart. They were tall, and possibly so, and thin. I couldn't make out faces or clothes, just black humanoid shapes, darker than the darkness behind them, like holes cut in the world. My breath caught. Hello. I called out, my voice swallowed by the emptiness. They didn't move, didn't make a sound. My mind raced. Hunters, ranch hands, but at night? In a perfect, silent line with no vehicles? Can I help you? I tried again, louder. My hand went to the pepper spray on my belt. One of them, the one directly in front of my SUV, took a single step forward. Just one, into the very fringe of my headlight beam. I still saw no detail, no features. It was just a tall, thin blackness that had advanced. The others remained frozen. That's when the fear became acid in my veins. This wasn't a social call. They weren't lost. They were observing. And the one that stepped forward felt like a test. A probe. I didn't run. Running meant turning my back, meant fumbling with the car door. I walked backwards, never letting my light leave them, until my hand found the cold metal of my door handle. I yanked it open, threw my tools in, and slid into the driver's seat, hitting the locks with a sweaty palm. I turned the key. The engine roared, shockingly loud. I slammed it into reverse, my tires spinning in the dirt before grabbing. I swung the SUV around, pointing my headlights back down the twin ruts I'd come in on. They were in the road, all of them, now standing in a loose line across the gravel path, blocking my exit. Still silent, still impossibly still. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had 2 choices, try to ram through them or go into the grassland and get hopelessly stuck. I laid on the horn, a long blaring wail that shattered the silence. They didn't flinch, not one of them. They just stood there, absorbing the sound. Terror, became a cold, clear decision. I shoved the SUV into drive, gripped the wheel, and punched the gas. I aimed for the gap between the two centermost figures. I didn't look at their faces. I looked at the gap. As I roared toward them, at the last possible second, they did something. They didn't scatter. They didn't jump aside. They simply stepped back. One precise, synchronized step backward into the grass. Just enough for my vehicle to pass through where they'd been standing. In my rear-view mirror, as I sped down that terrible road, I saw them. They had reconvened in the center of the road behind me, all of them, standing in a tight cluster now, facing my fleeing taillights. Just watching. I didn't stop until I hit the paved highway, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I called my boss, babbling. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Station number 47. Yeah. Don't worry about the follow-up. We'll decommission that one." I quit a month later. I never got a straight answer. But sometimes I drive on dark country roads at night now, and I see a lone yard light in the distance. And for a second, my brain doesn't see a light pole. It sees a thin, tall silhouette, standing at the edge of the light, not moving, just watching. And I wonder what they're looking for, and if they ever stop looking once they've chosen a subject. My brother Evan and I were on a road trip from St. Louis to Denver. It was his idea to take the scenic route through Kansas, which at 2 a.m. is less scenic and more like driving through a void. We were bickering, tired, and the gas needle was leaning hard on E. "We need gas," I stated for the 10th time. I know, Evan grumbled, squinting at his phone. "No service. Map says next town is Gable Creek, 15 miles. Gable Creek wasn't a town. It was a ghost. A single flickering streetlight illuminated a boarded-up post office and a grain elevator skeleton. But there, on the far side, was a gas station. A single, outdated pump under a canopy with one buzzing fluorescent tube. A small, square building with a lit sign that simply read, "Open." "Creepy," Evan said. "We're out of options," I replied, pulling up to the pump. The place was utterly silent except for the buzz of the light and the sigh of the wind through prairie grass. No cars. The building's windows were fogged, yellowed from within by a weak light. I went to the pump. It was an old, mechanical kind. No card reader. The digital readout was dark. "Probably need to pay inside," I said. Evan stayed in the car. "Hurry up." The door to the station chimed with a sickly, dying bell sound. The air inside was warm, thick with the smell of old coffee and mildew. The shelves were almost entirely empty. Not sparse empty. A few faded bags of chips from brands I didn't recognize, a couple of dusty cans of motor oil. No cooler humming. No magazines. Behind the counter sat a man. He was old, with a face like a dried riverbed, and he was staring at a small black and white TV with no picture, just static snow. He didn't look up. Hi. Fill up on pump 1, please." He slowly turned his head. His eyes were pale, watery. He looked at me, then through me, at the door behind me. "Cash only," he said. His voice was the sound of gravel shifting. "I have cash. How much to fill it?" $23, he said, still not looking at me, his eyes back on the static. It was an oddly specific, low number, but I was just grateful it worked. I pulled out 30. "Here." He took the bills, his fingers cold and dry. He made no move to turn on the pump. He just stared at the money in his hand. "Sir, the pump?" He looked up again, and this time his focus was sharp, unnerving. "You from around here?" "No. Just passing through to Denver." He nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something terrible. "Don't linger." He finally stood, stiffly, and walked to a back wall. There was no cash register, just a metal lockbox on a shelf. He put my money inside, took out a single key on a long chain, and walked past me out the door. I followed him. He went to the pump, inserted the key, and turned it. The pump didn't whir to life. The old mechanical numbers just clicked over to 0. He looked at Evan in the car, then back at me. Exactly $23 worth. Not a drop more. Then you leave. He went back inside without another word. I started pumping. The gas smelled sharp. Chemical, almost. But the needle on my gas gauge began to climb. Evan rolled down his window. Dude, this place is a Stephen King novel. Let's go. The pump was slow, agonizingly slow. As we waited, I noticed something. In the yellowed window of the station, the old man was standing, watching us. Not casually, intently. His hands were flat on the glass. Then, from the darkness of the road behind us, a pair of headlights appeared. A car, moving slowly, coasted to a stop on the opposite side of the pumps. An old, boxy sedan. It sat there, engine idling roughly. I couldn't see the driver through the glare on the windshield. The pump clicked off. $22.98. It stopped. It wouldn't give another drop. I put the nozzle back, my skin crawling. The car across from us just sat there, idling. Go, 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 Evan hissed. I got in. As I started the engine, the driver's door of the sedan opened. A man got out. He was dressed in normal clothes, jeans, a jacket. But he moved wrong. Stiff, jerky, like a puppet with tangled strings. He didn't go to the pump. He didn't look at us. He walked straight toward the station door, his head tilted at an odd angle, fixated on that yellow light. I pulled onto the road, my foot heavy on the gas. In the rearview mirror, I saw the old man unlock the station door from the inside. The stiff man walked in. The door closed behind him. We drove in silence for 10 minutes before Evan spoke. Did your gas gauge move? I looked. The needle sat just above half a tank. Yeah, it worked. No, he said, his voice quiet. When we pulled in, it was below empty. Below the red line, I watched it. It didn't just go to half. It went past where it was when we left St. Louis. I stared at the gauge. He was right. It was higher than it should have been. Like we'd added 15 gallons, not just $23 worth. We made it to Denver. The car ran fine. But the next morning, I went out early. There, on the driver's side window, smeared in a thin, oily grime, was a single, clear handprint. Long, thin fingers. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Evan's. It looked like the print of someone who had stood beside the car, in the dark at that gas station, and waited for us to look away. I never found Gable Creek on a map again. I've tried. But sometimes when I'm on a long, empty road and my gas gauge dips low, I see a single light in the distance, and a voice in my head, cold and gravelly, says, $23. Not a drop more. Then you leave. And I drive past, on fumes, praying I make it, because the alternative is to go back and find out what they're really selling and what they use for payment.